So I think we are right on time, ahead of the schedule, but we were late. So yeah, it is my immense pleasure, and not just great, to introduce you.
Boulanger for the French, Boulanger for the French one, Bollinger for the Swiss one, and Ballinger for the English one.
Algo Japanese. Okay, great. And please.
Okay, so thank you. Hi, huge crowd. Okay, I'm presenting here a project of a mobile game, an app, as said, and I'm not a developer, and I'm more a customer presenting what I asked to a student who did his internship and then his diploma work for me. So please don't ask too many technical questions I cannot answer, but anyway. So Paul Gillet that you see here could not be here today, so he apologized. Is the real one who did the work. So what was the idea and basic premises of doing a game for environmental issues? So the idea is like, okay, we're in critical state of our planet. It's been like more than 30 years I'm trying to explain this to people. Not big success on this. But then when you explain this to people, they say, okay, I don't know what to do. They are lost. And so it leads usually to anxiety or immobilism or denial sometimes. And so nothing changes. And so the idea to me was to help people identify the things or the actions they could do that makes sense. But not only as individuals, but also as citizens or as part of companies or maybe heads of companies, whatever. And the idea is that since it's serious and it's anxiety-provoking issues, to make it fun and not just like making them feel guilty and then, oh, I have to change because else I'll be guilty of the doom of the world. So also show the positive effects of these actions, of what these actions could have. So that was really the basic idea I had. And so I asked him, I made I don't know how you say cahier des charges in English? Like a task list. Yeah, specifications for an internship work. And we had Paul Gillet that came, and he did this as this is a, let's say, working prototype, but not functional, but that was the aim of the project, called EcoGest, or you can call EcoGesture, an app. It's saying, okay, I have like challenges, and I can see what I can do. I can have small actions with big impact, maybe as an individual, but as a community, and some rewards at stake also. My benefits, what should they be? So it's not reward that the game gives, but the rewards that I gain by doing things. And this is, we worked with a design thinking approach to make the concept, and we guide consumers aged 18-30 in Switzerland to adopt eco-responsible behaviors in a fun way. So the work done was, as I said, an internship with the first prototype that you see, functional prototype, the architecture of it, and it was on PC to see if it worked, and then test it also with some users or players. And then in summer 2020, a diploma work, a second prototype that worked, and I still have the icon on my old Samsung A3 phone, but the little problem is that now the code is a bit obsolete due to the Android updates. Anyway, that's a diploma work, but we'll see what we can do. It was playable. So the architecture was pretty simple, and I will not make theoretical speech about this, but like an API, APK server, and the use case that you see here, and I really like the work in the use case to make them as realistic as possible with people that may not be convinced that we should do something, but maybe they are thrilled to game with each other. So let's play, and since I cannot play on this one, I will play here as if. So launching the application. I like the little icon he made, find it cute. So of course the login info. So it's working. I mean, it was working. So the code is existing, etc. It works. So you can subscribe, of course. And then you had the main menu. On the main menu, you had the list of the challenges. You had access to a personal score. So how good am I doing? You had a ranking to make a little bit competitive. And you had also community results, to me, which was really important to see how much all these individuals put together make an effect. Of course, account setup and general information about this. Let's go into this then. So you could choose on different categories of challenges, which were technological, educational, consumptions, etc., etc., and choose the challenges. And for example, sorting or filtering the challenges in between all of them, or the one I did not do that I can still subscribe for, or the one that are ongoing, or the one that are terminated. Of course, I will have the points when it's terminated. Let's select a challenge. For example, here in water sparing issues, and you know this one. If you don't have it at home, buy it. It's not a big effort. And this is an example that shows what it is, a little picture, a little explanation, and you see, I have a, yeah, great technology will save us. And you have here the scores. So of course it's just fake values, whatever. But you see that I do not have one score, but I have 4 different ones. One for the climate change, one for the ecosystem impact, one for the resources, and one for the water take or use. And this is really like what we see in life cycle analysis and what we use as indicators of environmental impacts. And you cannot put this in one single score. And you hear all the time climate change, CO2, CO2, CO2. That's just 15% of what we are heading to in environmental issues. So that was a choice to see 4 different scores and see like a chart of it, let's say. So let's start it. You can start it and say, okay, I started. And when I finished it, I can just say it's finished and it gives me the scores. And of course, I can then return to the back menu and look at my scores. And you see that the scores, it's not just one score, but it will be with the different indicators and explaining what it is and what impact it does, always based on life cycle analysis, of course. Then I can see my ranking. Oops, sorry, I was a little bit too quick. Yeah, the ranking in between the different players. And so I can see that maybe Stefan is doing better than me, and I'm just like, what? I am the teacher in environmental engineering. How can you do better than me? So let's do some challenges. Okay, so that's to make it a little bit fun about this. And then the community with the results, and the results with a little bit more details on the different, let's say, the different indicators. And let me check, it's too small. Okay, and you have different values that can help you put yourself into comparison with it. So the total contribution of the community, and the community is everybody that plays the game. So that could be nice to spread. And my contribution compared to the others or the community. Of course, well, sorry, the account settings, pretty basic, and general information, which is in this case a flyer or whatever, of saying, okay, why are we using this, etc., etc. So, in conclusion then, We have, or we had, even though it exists, some minor code reviewing needed, an existing and tested prototype. We tested it with some players to see if it works, if they found it good. Of course, they said, oh, that would be better to have more challenges. Okay, that's a demo. We had like 10 challenges. But we can also have individuals challenges, but also citizen ones, or like company-wide ones. For example, we can also imagine that we have a shared account of a company where everybody in the company can say, oh, I did this and that and that. And so it showed interesting, fun and helpful elements. The potential and usefulness of the game for both people as individuals that change themselves and, let's say, the planet as a common change of the behaviors. And it really helped people who said, I don't know what to do. I said, okay, I can do this, it's easy, let's do it. Gain some points, and that's not a big change. And the community also to see, oh, maybe there are bigger challenges that do not involve myself as an individual, but maybe we have to do it together. And that gave ideas of ways to follow, a path to follow. And it's based on sustainability expertise because it's on real values behind of environmental impacts. So perspectives and needs. So I'm just here because of asking who's interested for reviewing the code for the current Android version, or maybe remove the glitch in the code that worked with the 4 years ago version and not anymore here. So, okay, takes some time, but it's completely documented and the code is available. Maybe developing and releasing a public version. I don't want to make money about this because that's not my aim, but if this app exists and works and is fun, then it's cool, and I'm happy. For this, consolidating the business model of saying, okay, how can we finance this? Is there something that we can gain as a business model? And then helping find people interested in supporting and managing this app development, or supporting as financing, etc. So these are open questions, and thank you for attention, and maybe your investment.
Thank you so much, Dominique. So maybe there's a couple of questions. Yeah, we do have 1 minute. No questions? No questions? Yes. Great.
Merci beaucoup pour cette présentation. Just wondered, I can't review your code because I'm not coding. However, I could maybe discuss with you of options of making it non-digital. I don't know. Have you considered making it easier for a card game or something?
Yeah.
So of course, with the ranking thing, it's a bit more difficult. Who knows? I don't know. Yeah. Whether you consider other low technology.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. But in fact, Paul G was a student in informatics, and coding. So the aim of his work, of course, was to work, but also work on mobile apps. I choose this, and I'm pretty happy with it. With the, let's say, contradictional aspects of talking about the environment using mobile phones. But as my Caribbean friend said, we have to laugh with the wolves. And it's just to say, okay, this exists within people, especially young ones, and so let's try to use this media to make them change and make it fun. But of course, the card play or the, let's say, table play could really be done, since, as you've seen, maybe I can show you this back again, the challenges, they look like cards. And you can just release the cards. But then the network and community results will be maybe more difficult to have, but you can imagine, for example, in the university or I don't know, you're in Geneva, I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever. But in an institution or a company, we can say, okay, let's all play with the card games and record the scores and then see the score of the overall entity, institutions, or company. Of course, that's completely feasible since we have the challenges and kind of the rules, let's say.
Thank you so much, Dominique. And it is also my great pleasure to invite Dominique also, but Dominique Jacquard this time, for our second session.
So, hi everyone. Thanks for having invited me. I'm glad to be here to speak about serious games. And what I would like to do is to speak about serious game design, and if you would like to design once a serious game or to design an effective serious game. Let's imagine that you would like to develop a new serious game. And let's say that you have an idea of the game that you would like to develop. Let's say that you have formed the budget, and you have the project team, so you are ready to begin your project. And so with your team, you will begin to design the game. And all along this process of game design, you will do some choices. But you know that the choices that you will do during this game design will impact the result of your project. Different choices during game design mean different game at the end of the project. And when I design games with my team, I always have that in my head. And when we design a game, I have that kind of image in my head. Because we will do some choices, which mean we choose one of those doors. And depending on the door that we will choose, we'll have a different game at the end of the project. Let's take an example. Let's say that we would like to design a new game for project management education. So this is something that we did with my team some years ago. We designed a game for project management education, and during the design process we had that situation. So we had to choose one of those doors. I remember when, I think we chose that one. So we chose that door, and now let's see what was the game that was behind that door. So at the end of the project, we had that game, which we call the project management game, or the PM game. So in that game, students take the role of a project manager, and they have to manage a virtual project. Just some screenshot of that game to give an overview. In that game, the player will all along the project has to choose among different options during project initiation, project planning, project execution. And then they also have to plan the project, plan activity, assign resources, and so on. And they will have some to monitor the quality, schedule, and budget will be, and those indicators, they will dynamically change depending on the choices that have been made by the players in the game. So that's the software part of the game. And then here you have some students at work in the PM game. So as you can see, we have the software game, but we also have some teamwork. And here the students, they discuss together and try to find the best option to solve the problem they are encountered in the game. And we also have some role plays, so sometimes we stop the software game and ask the students, for example, to prepare a presentation of the state of their project and present that, for example, to the steering committee. Just some fact about that game. So at the beginning, I developed it for my own usage and lectures, but then some other teacher asked, oh, can we use that game also? And now this game is used in many universities and companies in Switzerland and abroad. So that was an example, but let's go back in time and back to the beginning of the design process, and we choose that door. But what if another team will have designed a game for project management? Maybe they would have chosen one other door. Let's say they will have chosen that door. What will have been the game that is behind that door? It may be something like that. This is also a project management game. This wasn't developed by my team. I don't know who designed that game, but so in that game, you have to move your character in this labyrinth and go to the Q point. And when you are on the Q point, you have to answer to a question such as, in project management, what does mean the CPI? And then you have A, B, or C. And you have to quickly answer because you have those red guys in the game. They say it's the guys from the accounting service who try to catch you and make you lose your time. Wow. It's so different. Both of them are called project management games, but they are so different. So one could ask the question, which one is the best? And I think we can't answer to that question. You may prefer one of those games. Of course, I like mine. It's not because I will never say that it's better. I will say that it's more consistent with my objectives, with the way I will use it in my lecture. And you may prefer one or the other, depending on your objectives. So no, the question is not how to design a serious game, but it's more how to design an effective serious game, which means how to design a game that will meet its objectives, which is not so easy. Because at the beginning of the project, often our objectives are not really clear. And how to design a game that will balance the game and the learning aspect, which is not so easy. To design a good game is difficult. To design a good pedagogical resource where people will learn something, it's difficult. But to design a game that is both a good game and where you will learn something, it's even more difficult. And how to do that with a multidisciplinary team. You have computer scientists, graphic designer, you have teachers, you have educational researchers, you have game experts, and so on. And all those people don't have the same vocabulary, and they do not always understand each other. So the title of this slide could have been something like, search a lot of ways to fail in your game design and development project. The question, is there a magic recipe? The bad news is no, I don't think. I don't think there is a magic recipe that will ensure the success of serious game design and development. But the good news is that I think if you use a design framework, it may help. It may enhance the chances of success. And that's why we designed the Collab Serious Game framework. And this framework is the result of something like 10 years of experimentation in game design. And this framework has been developed in the frame of a national research program. We did that in collaboration with the University of Geneva. So in this framework, as you can see, we have five main design categories, and in each of those design categories, we have some design elements. And what I would like to do is to share some of the main ideas of this framework. So to take this framework and present the main design elements, and then show, as an example, how we can use this framework to show how we can design a game, such as, for example, this PM game that I presented before. I will not describe all the design elements, because it will be too long, but focus on the main design element, and at the end of the presentation I will give you the link to our platform where you will find all the details of this framework. So, let's begin. First design element is the context. When we begin a design project with the design team, I begin by that and defining what is the context of usage of the game and what is the problem that we want to solve with the game. So for example, for the project management game, it's something like the context is academic and professional education. The problem we would like to solve, it was, I wanted that in my project management courses, the students should learn about theoretical knowledge, practical knowledge, and to develop soft skills. But the problem is that in ex-cathedra lecture, it's difficult to develop practical competencies and soft skills. So that was the problem. Now, the second design element is the learning goal. So here, we will describe briefly what is the serious goal of our project. So, in the case of PM game, it was, I would like that this game help to develop practical competencies and soft skills. And then, the third design element is the game outline. Here you will briefly define your game. So try to pitch your game in one sentence. So for example, for the PM game, something like, in this game you will take the role of a project manager, and then you will have to successfully manage your project by taking the right management decision. Something like that. And now we have our first design category, which we call the context and objective. And we have to ask the question, is it consistent? So, for example, for the PM game, are the context and the learning goal consistent? So, in the context, I say that the problem is it's difficult to develop practical competencies and soft skills in ex-cathedra lecture. And the learning goal, I say, okay, the goal of the game is to develop those practical competencies and soft skills, so it's consistent. Is the game outline consistent with the context? Take the role of a project manager and successfully manage a project. Is that consistent with the context of academic education? Yes, it's okay. I think that we can use that kind of game in bachelor or master programs. Is the game outline consistent with the learning goal? Do I think that in a game where you take the role of a project manager and manage a virtual project, is it possible to develop those practical competencies and soft skills? Yes, it seems that it's possible. What about that one? If I keep the same context and learning goal and just change the game outline, in that game, so the game outline will be something like move your character in the labyrinth and quickly answer to some questions. Is it consistent? Is it consistent with the context? Not really. I will not use that kind of games in master academic education. Is it consistent with the learning goal? Because you will not be able to develop practical competencies and soft skills in that kind of game. So once again, it doesn't mean that it's a good or bad game. It just means that it's designed for another context and another learning goal. And as you can see, just with those 3 sentences, it's possible to detect that you have a problem. And you have something that is not consistent. And once you have done that, then it will give a kind of direction for all the projecting, because you know where you go. And if in the middle of the project you have some new team member that join the project, it's easy to quickly explain what's the idea of the game, what's the context, what's the problem you want to solve, what's the serious goal, what's the idea of the game. So now, if you are consistent with that, we can move further and go to the learning design. So here we will precise what is our serious goal. And we'll begin by defining the learning objectives. So here the idea is to break down the learning goal into smaller elements, so to precise this learning goal. And I will, for the PM game, I will have something like, at the end of the game, the player will be able to, and then give a list of all what he should learn in the game, such as create a project proposal, carry out a risk management process, lead a steering committee, create an activity, a network diagram, and so on. Next step, define the learning foundation. This is a step that often people want to skip. I advise not to skip that step. Here we will think about what are our learning objectives and try to explain how is it possible to reach them and try to be scientifically grounded. For example, we may use things such as the Bloom taxonomy, maybe you know, I've heard about that, which say that you can have a knowledge at different levels. The low order level is you just remember things, or you are able to recite blah blah blah, but you don't even understand what you say. And then you may understand, but maybe you are not able to apply it. And then you are able to apply it. And then you go in a higher order thinking skills, such as being able to analyze, evaluate, or create new knowledge with what you already know. So in the PM game, we are more in the high level competencies. So it's high order thinking skills. So then it will not be rote learning that will be efficient for developing those high level thinking skills. So it will be more something like the students will have to construct their own knowledge in the game. Okay, and then we have some other learning design elements, such as defining the learner profile, defining the pedagogical scenario, but I will not go deeper in this presentation for those elements. So now we have our learning category, but we also have to define the game category. And here we'll define, so here it's more like the traditional game design element that we define here. So we'll define the game universe, the world in which the game will be played. So for the PM game, it's easy. It's, the game is played in a company, so it's something like a corporate environment. And we'll define the goals and the rules of the game, and try to find a clear goal that is achievable with simple rules. For me, a good game is a game that has very simple rules that you quickly understand, but then those simple rules generate a complex and exciting gameplay. A bad game is a game where you need with very complex rules, you need 2 hours to understand the rules, and once you have understood the rule and played the game, you discover that it generates a boring gameplay. So try to find simple rules. So for the PM game, the goal is complete your project within predefined objectives, cost and schedule. And then we have just a single 5 or 6 rules, such as there's no way to go back, what is decided is decided. And then in the gaming part, we will also define things such as the game type, adventure game, or first-person shooter, or simulation, and so on. And we'll define the graphics, have to be consistent with the context and the user profiles, and we'll define the simulation model if it's a game that is based on simulation. So. Okay, now we have context, the learning part, and the gaming part. And the next question is how to link that. And this is the key. This is the key to success or key to failure. If you miss that, if you are not able to link the learning and the gaming part, then you will miss your objective. So how to link the game aspect with the learning aspect? And the answer is through the alignment of 2 main mechanics. One mechanic is the learning mechanic. What we call the learning mechanic is those elementary activities that will be repeated all along the game by the player and that will enable them to learn. And we can learn something by different ways. We can learn by listening to a lecture, you can learn by reading a book, you can learn by doing exercises, you can learn by discussing with other people, and so on. And you have to find the right mechanic that should be aligned with your learning objectives and learning foundation. So, for example, in the PM game, the main learning mechanic is take decision in team. And then apply your decision in the simulation and analyze the results that you obtain. And then participate in debates within the team to try to understand what's happening. So that's the first mechanic. And the second mechanic is the game mechanic. So the game mechanic is this kind of mechanic that the player will repeat all along the game. So it may be a jump or move your character or shout or so on. So in the PM game, the core mechanic is decision making. So doing choices within team. And then we have some secondary mechanics such as plan your activity and assign resources and so on. And once we have done that, once again ask the question, is it consistent? Are the learning mechanic consistent with the learning design? So for example, in the PM game, we have the learning objectives. From the learning objectives, we have seen that the learning foundation is more high-level competencies. And then we have those mechanics which are discuss in team, try to solve the problem in team, take decision, analyze results, so it's consistent. Are the learning mechanics consistent with the game mechanic? In the PM game, the main learning mechanic is discuss in team to take the right decision, and the main game mechanic is take decision. So they are nearly the same, they are really interrelated. So they are really linked together, so it's okay. Are the game mechanic consistent with the game design? So in the PM game, the game mechanic is take decision. Is that consistent with the game universe? You are a project manager in a company, taking decision, yes, it's consistent. And does the game mechanic is consistent with the goal and the rules of the game? Yes, because to achieve your goal in the game, the rule is to take the right decision, so the game mechanic is consistent with that also. So we are quite aligned from the learning objective to the goals and rules. What about that one? If I keep the same context and objectives, and I look at the learning and game mechanics, the learning mechanic is quickly answer a question, and the game mechanic is move your character. Will it be consistent with our game? No. Because the learning mechanic will not be consistent with the learning objectives, because this is a kind of mechanic that is for rote learning, it's for low order in the Bloom taxonomy. It will not enable to achieve this high thinking order, which again doesn't mean that it's a good or bad game. It just means that it's not consistent with what we would like to do in that situation. I may have a kind of problem with that game, which is the learning and game mechanic. Because the learning mechanic is answer a question, and the game mechanic is move your character. And this is not really consistent. And for that reason, this is not exactly a serious game. It's more kind of gamification. You have the question, and then you have the game, but it's not really interrelated. One last design category I like in our project, as from the beginning of the project, to define how we will assess the result. And this is through the evaluation category. Define as the beginning of the project, how you will do the learning assessment, assess if people have learned something in the game, and how you will assess the game. And for that, you have different kind of scales and methods that are available, and so this define at the beginning of the project which one you will use and on what level you would like to reach. You know, we have our we have our game that is designed. So here I did it alone in 15 minutes. So in a real project, you have to do that in team, and it may take up to some days or weeks to do that. And here I just give some keywords or one sentence for each of those design elements. In a real project, you may have up to 1 or 5 pages to define those game elements. And what's that? What have we created here? So what's that? It's the Collab Serious Game Design Framework. But what's that else? And if you look at the right and the left side of this framework, then we have designed a serious game. Because the left side is all the serious aspect of the game, and the right side is all the game aspect. And it's not one serious object and one game object. It's really a serious game because everything is interrelated and linked, in particular, to the game and learning mechanics. So that's if we look at the framework from left, right perspective. If you look at the framework from a top-down perspective, then we have a project. The top of the framework, we define the problem and the objectives that we would like to reach. And then in the middle of the framework, we define the solution we would like to develop. And at the bottom of the framework, we define how we will evaluate this solution, which will be called the success criteria in project management. So that's the collab framework. Now the question is, does it work? Well, when we developed that framework, we made an assumption that this kind of framework may support a multidisciplinary team because it gives you a kind of direction what you have to do and it gives you another view of the work you have to do in a multidisciplinary team. And in order to test that assumption, we used that framework in two game design. One was for the game for patients' rights education, which we developed in collaboration with the nursing school in Lausanne. It was a medium-sized project of 1 year and a team of 8 persons, so as you can see, a multidisciplinary team. And then we also designed another game with the same framework for major incident medical management. And this was in collaboration with the University Hospital of Geneva. And this one was a bigger project, a 4-year project, and with a bigger team, bigger design team, and again, quite multidisciplinary team. So we did a survey at the end of the design phase and tried to evaluate how the framework supported the collaboration and the design team. We evaluate several collaborative dimensions, and this is the synthesis of all this post-evaluation. So as you can see in both projects, the framework was evaluated as having a positive impact on the game design and a positive impact on the collaboration. So that's what we did until now. So we have developed that framework, we use it for game design, and we have evaluated the framework, and it seems that it helps for game design. So what are the perspectives? Next steps, we would like to implement this framework into a web platform. So this is still work in progress, but here is a screenshot of the current web platform. So in the platform, we have introduced the design framework, and then when we design a new project, all the design team may access the platform, and when you click on one of those design elements, then it opens a collaborative space where all the team may, for example, define the learning goals. And in this platform, the design team will also find some documentation, for example, how to design learning goals and some examples. So this is the current state of the development of the web platform. What are my take-home messages? 3 messages. Choices that you do during serious game design will impact the final result of your project. And serious game design is a difficult process which involves a multidisciplinary team. And design framework, such as the collab framework, may support this design team. If you want some more information, this is the website of my research lab, albasim.ch. If you want more information about the collab framework, you can go there, and in the tab publication, you will find the original paper where we describe in detail this framework and all the design elements. And if you would like to use the web platform for game design, so it's still in development, but I think in something like 2 months, we'll be ready for to launch the platform, and it will be completely free of access. So if you are interested to use that platform for your game design, you can go on the website, and in the contact form, just send me an email, so I will keep your mail, and I will get you informed once the platform will be launched. Thanks for your attention. questions?
Thank you very much. I have two questions. The first is based on the PM game that you did, or maybe the other project that you do. What kind of design approach you suggested? I don't know if you coached them or if you let them do this and then were there for the input and the output. If you used design thinking or yeah.
It was a lot of things to say about that. So it was mainly so all the team around the table and try to design. But what we have seen, you said you let them do that alone, and what we discover is that, and this is also published in this paper where we evaluated the framework, is that this framework helps, but you still need someone who has to manage the project. You still need a serious game expert. And the framework may help a team who has no serious game expert, but the serious game expert is still needed. So that's one of the things I would like to say. And the other is what we observe is that when you design a game, it's not waterfall project management approach. That is also. So we know that it's not waterfall approach. So we often say, oh, it's more agile approaches. But we discover that it wasn't even agile approaches. Because in agile approaches, you define cycle and then you do the cycle many times. And here it was more what I would call a systemic approach. Because we had that framework and everybody was speaking, and then the designer said, oh, we need a red color for the logo because blah, blah, blah of the context, and then we put that in the design element. And then medical doctor said, but you know, for the birth weight, we need to use that simulation model, and then we put that here. And so it was a discussion going like that, and all the teams see the framework, and we begin to complete this overall picture. And what was interesting for me, the difference between using the framework or not using the framework. If you don't have the framework and if you have kind of second shelf approach, then the designer say, oh, we need the red color for the logo, blah, 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 and you say, yeah, but it's not the time to say that, no, and because we are discussing it. And then 15 minutes later, I say, but you know, we need the red color for that. And if you have the design framework, say, okay, we need the red color, we put that in the design element, and we can know it's written, so we can speak about something else.
And the second question after I start. The framework, in fact, is not only for digital game. It could be like for any kind of game.
Yes. Yes, sure.
Thank you. A few years ago, there was something called Game Design Canvas, which I did use for one of the developments. Not for a team effort, but for an individual game. Have you compared your approach with that, and have you got it published somewhere?
I don't remember about this game design Canvas, but if you look at the original paper where we present the framework, what we did, we based it on experience, but we also based it on literature review. So we did a scientific literature review on all the design framework and tried to look what were the main elements that we will find in all the framework, and then to base this framework. So of course we did not invent everything, so it's mainly based on work that have been done by others before.
Yeah, so I think it would be interesting to look like one by one, compare how this compares, because the problem with this game design canvas was that there is not a publication, but there is a website where you can get the guy's stuff and look at this and use it or something. So
Okay,
that's like he's published it quasi somewhere, but it's not quite, not quite clear where. But I think that there is some similarities. It will be interesting to see what your contribution is in comparison to that.
Many thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't know how much it was discussed already. I'm going to use a little bit of cherry picking here, maybe. But your framework work is really interesting. My question was: is your PM game? For me, it sounded more like a consistent gamified simulation. And the other game you presented, the one with the Pac-Man type of mechanics, is more like not a gamification, but a serious game that is non-consistent with the learning. And so, am I just cherry picking here, or was it just to outline the consistency of the model you wanted to do that, or because for me your game is more like a gamified simulation, but is it important in that case to change the type of format?
This may open a big discussion. There are two things. One is about this question of the Pac-Man game. I said the Pac-Man game, for me, it was kind of gamification, but that's not exactly true, but the learning mechanic and the game mechanic are different. And so when you do that, studies have shown that the students are aware of that. And then they know, okay, I have to answer the question such as always, but then they put a game on the top of the question. And studies have shown that this is less efficient. But it's not so bad in that one. I've seen that are really bad for that. So that one is quite okay for, but there's a little something that for me that we can improve. And now this question is the PM game again. And this is a question we can discuss about that for a long time. Because if you look at the definition of what's a game, you will find such a lot of definition. And depending on the definition, you will say yes or no, or yes or no. And so it depends on the definition you take. And there is one definition that I like. It's a game, kind of puzzle that you try to solve with pleasure. And if you take that definition, then the serious game may be a game. The PM game may be a game. Because it's a problem that the students try to solve with maybe a little more pleasure than other exercises. And we had an interesting experimentation about that. We developed a game for emergency triage in hospital. So it's a very simulation game, even less gamified than the PM game. And you are really in a hospital emergency room, and you have patients that arrive, and you have to ask questions to the patient, and then to decide what's the emergency level. And then they use that for medical education. And then we did a survey, and we asked the question, did you have the impression to learn and play, or play? And it was like 95% said learn and play. They all say that it was a kind of game. But that was somewhat surprising, because if you look at that, it wasn't at all a game. It was really serious. So why did they say that it's a game? And I think the answer may be, if you take that definition, because they try to solve a problem with pleasure. And as they had more pleasure with that simulation than traditional exercises, they say it was a kind of game.
Maybe I have one last question. It's aligned with what we said now. It's about this idea of consistency. Do you think it is always needed, for instance, outside the education domain, maybe it's not that important, or you think it's always important to be consistent, or too much consistency bring toward simulation at the end.
So what is the question?
No,
What do you think?
I understand the question. I would say you have to be consistent, but too much consistency would mean not enough flexibility. And you can be consistent but be flexible. So for example, with this PM game, sometimes I saw things that the students imagined or did in the game that I was really surprised. I saw they did many things which I didn't play, so because there is some flexibility in the game, and this is also because not everything is in the software game. So one part of the game or role play, or so I would say yes, be consistent but stay flexible.
So it links me as a non-specialist of a serious gamer. So you try to tell us what game means to you, like learning with pleasure or with fun. But maybe what is serious? Is it? And maybe that the question is not only to you, but to everybody here. Is serious always learning?
If we take this definition of what is a game, if we take that definition, solving a problem with pleasure, then many things in your life may be a game. So, for example, for me, studying is a game because I solve problems with such a lot of pleasure. And then you have people who say, is football a game? If you play it, so you have to solve a problem to put the ball in the goal. And if you solve that problem with pleasure, then it's a game. Some professional players say, oh, I don't have any pleasure, it's not any more game for me. So with this definition, we can understand those kind of things. So that's one part of the answer to the question, is learning serious or not? It depends. And if learning is a game, which means that you learn with pleasure, to solve the problem with pleasure, then for me it's perfect. And so, should we still call that a serious game? I would say yes, because it's a game where the objective of the game is not just to play, but you use the game mechanics to do something else. So in that case, it's learning. In your case, it's being aware of environmental problem. And so if you use the game approach to try to reach another objective, then I will call it serious.
Thank you. It's 15 minutes that exist from the
Anyway, I would like to add games definitions are very, very tricky. I mean, if you even take a look at the definition of games, you will not get one definition. You've got quite a lot of definitions, so it's always very difficult. And now I have the great pleasure to invite Michael Terret, who will be the next chairman for the last session.
Thank you, Stefan. The next session, or the last session, is about training, and I think our first speaker is not here, so it will be a video presentation from Simon Ciri, driving test theory learner, which shows an alternative method to learn the traffic rules from driving theory test in Switzerland. So we will see if there are questions after that video presentation.
Hello everyone. Here is a short presentation of game concepts produced as part of the HSSO Master's course, Game Technologies. The game in question is called Driving Theory Test Learner by me, Simon Ciri. In this presentation, I'll start by talking about the context needed to understand the relevance of the game and what our game is all about. I will then explain the fundamental aspects of the game in the context of the prototype we've produced. I then give an overview of the prototype with a short demo and conclude with a summary of this small project. First of all, to understand why such a game is necessary, a little background is in order. In Switzerland, 80% of the population has a driver's license. To obtain one, the theoretical driving test is a compulsory step. To prepare for this exam, the most common method today is to use a smartphone app with looming questions, like an MCQ application. The learning process is therefore long and tedious. One application in Switzerland, for example, is Fahrlehrer, which, as can be seen on the right, offers several types of questions and situations in which the user must answer precisely. In this example, we can see multiple types of theory questions, and we can observe one that asks to the user, what does a branch light with a light signal mean by a yellow stationary light that follows green? And you can answer with free drive or accelerate to pass before changing to red, or stops for vehicles that can still stop in front of the junction. As we can see, this question is not the best. So, to formalize the problem in question, current learning methods are tedious. There is a complete lack of variety and multiple repetition. as the other road users. In keeping with the minimalist spirit of the game, the interface contains only a speedometer, a GPS, and indications when rules are ignored. For our prototype, the level design remains simple. We've created a city, and the player takes several different routes through it. At each level, a new route is imposed, but the city remains the same, as we can see on the right, allowing the user to get to know the city. There are 3 levels imagined for this prototype, and each have a specific goal. The first level offers a tour of the city, introducing speed signs and stop signs. The second introduces the concepts of priorities and new signs. And finally, the third one introduces yet more new signs. For the core mechanics of our game are simple. Respect the rules of the road. This means obeying speed limits by accelerating or braking, stopping at stops on the stop line, put the blinker to signal before turning when our GPS indicates it, respect priorities, and respect other road users, like other cars, etc. Now we will show you a brief demo, a short demo of our prototype. So, as we can see, we have our car here. So first of all, in this mini demo, we can see our interface with its speedometer on the bottom right and the GPS on the left, who actually showed nothing. As well as a helper indicating whether what we are doing is correct or not, just here. We can start the video, we can start accelerating, and so the car will follow a predetermined path. In this case, encountering a speed limit sign. As we saw when we get closer to the sign, a pause is made so that the user can take note of the sign and learn how to react to it. And so on with each new sign. The score in the top left-hand corner is updated when the user follows the sign correctly, but if he doesn't, no points are awarded. Finally, to observe the increased score on the top left, I'll stop at the stoplight, as you can see in front of us, and we can see that the score will increase. So here you can see the score is up by 1. And so that's for our game. So, to summarize, to sum up all this, we are presenting a gamified simulation concept that could help future drivers pass the highway code theoretical license. The gamified aspect of these concepts would simplify access to the driving test, especially for the young people. We have prototyped this concept with a minimalist game, and that allows the user to concentrate on the rules to be learned, as we saw, like the stops or the speed limits. In addition, we decided to emphasize user concentration and learning, while linking this with funds, thanks to the scoring systems, as we saw in the video. To conclude, we think this project has a great future as it offers an attractive alternative to current learning methods for the driving theory test. What's more, there are no games that have this, which makes this concept innovative. To develop the concept further, the game will need more road signs and more rules to cover all the rules of the road, for example, in Switzerland or in other countries. And similarly, pedestrians would need to be added, and the game would be added in the game. And so, a new dimension would be added to bring more immersion for the player. And to add even more immersion, we could imagine bring some more realistic graphics. Thanks for listening to this presentation of this project called Driving Theory Test Learner. If you want to know more about our project, you can contact me on my email. Thank you.
I will do something that usually you never ever do in a conference. But I would like to emphasize and point out something here. The student here, there was a deal. Or you will do an exam and report and plenty of things like are quite hard, or you come to the GSGS. And they say, okay, let's come for making the effort. And this is something you never ever do. But I mean, I would like to emphasize and point out that this is the results, and well, what would be the conclusion there?
Thank you. So I don't know if you have a question for or feedbacks. Maybe we can discuss right now. If not, we could move on to the next presentation. Pierre-Benjamin Monaco will discuss the negotiator. It's an application that teaches negotiation skills on a crisis management mode, right?
Yes, yes, it's a game about negotiation for hostage taking.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Pierre-Benjamin Monaco, and today I'm going to present. I'm sorry. Oh, it's very important that you take it. Yes. All right. Okay, this is a very serious situation. Hostage taking is happening right now, and I've just been asked to negotiate with the hostage taker. So let's go. Hi sir, I'm Pierre from the police department,
I'm here to speak with you about the current situation.
I don't care. Just do what I want and nobody's gonna get hurt.
Okay, what do you want?
My father is sick and I need money to cure him.
That's sad, but are you sure it's the good way to do that?
Nobody's wanna listen to me.
Okay, I'm here now. Can you tell me how many people are with you?
5 men and 2 women.
Is there any sick people or children?
One of the women is pregnant.
Okay, I know you have wife and kids. I'm sure you don't want to hurt anyone, right? So, would you agree to let her out?
You don't know shit about me. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I won't let anyone out until I got the money.
Come on, do you realize how stupid your behavior is? You're gonna get killed if you do that.
It's over. I told you to listen to me.
Whoa, what just happened here? Did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? Well, this is what the negotiator is going to teach you. So hello again, everyone. My name is Pierre-Benjamin Monaco, and this project was carried out with 2 other fellow students, Diego Villagrasa, which is just here, and Dylan Canton. It has been done during the course of the master's program at the University of Applied Science and Arts, Western Switzerland. So let's go in the game. So this is a gamified simulation. It's a closed world in 3 dimensions with immersive sound. You can hear footsteps, sirens, and the aim is to learn negotiation in an immersive simulation. So in this game, you will be able to interact with autonomous agents, with people in the game, and also with objects. So here we can see there is a file about the suspect. We can find some information like his name, his age, and also his phone number, which is pretty important. You also will be able to gather information. You can go to the criminal reports and look at this guy. So if you search, you can see that he stole a car, he destroyed a house, so he's not a good guy. And you can also go to the social networks to look at his relationships and maybe also his mental stability. So what about this phone that I used at the beginning of the presentation? Well, in our simulation, you can interact with people with your own phone. And for us, this is the most innovative part of the project. So, the cell phone is something that mostly everyone has in its pocket. It's a pretty intimate object. And when you hear this thing ringing or vibrating, you know that someone in the real world is trying to reach you. So by using this device, we try to add another level of immersion, and we kind of try to break the fourth wall. So let me now explain you why a simulation is a good way to train this situation. The first thing is that when you're in a critical situation, your skills are lowered to the minimum. And the only thing you have left is your training. So if you want to avoid mistakes, you have to practice again and again. In jobs such as surgeon, airplane pilot, negotiator, if you do one mistake, it can be catastrophic. It can lead to people dying. So the idea is when you're experiencing this kind of situation in a simulation, you can do mistakes, but without the direct consequences. So when you're organizing a full-scale simulation, it will cost you time, money, and people. Not to say that most of the time, the people involved in this kind of full-scale simulation are specialists, and they will not be available for their actual job when doing this simulation. Also, the the experience will not be the same between the participant in a full-scale simulation. Why? Because human beings are conducting this, and the mood will change during the day. So if you're using a computerized simulation, maybe the realism will be a bit lower, but at least you can offer the same experience for every participant. So what are the challenges? For us, the first challenge is the immersion. Let me ask you a question. Do you think the more realistic the game is, the more immersive it will be? I will answer by not always. You have to find some important points to tune. And for us, here, it's the scenario. So the other challenge is that we have to bring this project to life. So yeah, we know all these small projects, this proof of concept, they often end up in the shelf, in the drawer. So we have to find a way to bring this up. And the last challenge, which is very important also, is the acceptance of the community. So as you can see, we're dealing with pretty serious topics here. There is hostage taking, there are guns, and even people dying. So if I go now to a negotiator or someone in the field of the hostage taking negotiation, and I bring this simulation, he will see a video game. So we have to find a way to explain to the community that this is not for entertainment. This can really give you, bring you new skills by using this. So as I said, first we were 3, and now there is only me that is presenting. Diego is just there. What's next? So the adventure will continue, because I will take this project as my final masterwork. And I'm very happy to say that I've been invited as a guest researcher at the University of Skövde in Sweden to pursue this goal. So there is 2 topics that we really want to explore, and the first one is artificial intelligence. So I told you that in this simulation you can communicate with people with your own phone. So okay, the hostage taker will call you, and you will hear, but the problem is that how do you answer him? And for the moment, in this simulation, you will have to press buttons, and this breaks the immersion. So would we find a way to use artificial intelligence to use this device as we use it in the real life? That's a question. And the other topic that we want to explore is the creation of new scenario. So in order to improve the content of the game, sure, we have to make new scenario. But if you want to make new scenario now, you have to bring people from every field. It's a multidisciplinary project, like Dominic Jacques said. And you need time. So maybe if we can make a scenario creator that will enable the people from the field of negotiation to make their own scenario in an autonomous manner, well, the life cycle of the game can increase. So what do we need? We need technical skills. We need people that know how to make games, that know how to make simulation, that know how to code, to do artificial intelligence. We also need expertise. We need people that know the field. We need former negotiator or police school teacher. We need people that knows what are the situation. And at the end, we need all of you, because we want to spread the news. We want you to say, hey folks, there is a simulation that can help you train negotiating a hostage-taking situation. So the only thing I have left to say is thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any questions or suggestion or advice, please send me a mail. I will be happy to answer. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's not a question, but I'm glad to thank my student for this nice presentation and the nice project. Again, this is one of the projects developed in the framework of the Game Tech course I give with Stefan, and I'm glad about my students, but also I'm glad about us, because achieving this after one term of learning game design and game implementation, and the majority of them have never done anything in this domain. So it's, yeah, I'm very glad about the teaching team and the students, and good luck for the future. The second comment, it's a joke in fact. In the game also we are gamifying the course, me and Stefan, because we are playing two opposite roles. I'm the gentle teacher and he is the very tough teacher, and it seems that tough teachers are have more success because we will continue with you and not with me. So next year we will change roles, okay? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I have to say that I was not alone again. This project would not have been done without Diego and Dylan.
Yeah, I thank
all
of the students.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I really liked also the seniorized presentation that you did, kind of gamified also. And I don't know if I did not get it, but where the idea of this negotiator came from, and did you have demand or some police teachers, or I don't know, asking for something, and hence, who are the customers of it?
So I could be mean and I could say, here is my colleague and he will answer way better than me, but I will do that. I was not at the first course of the year, so they choose without me, but what can I say is that both of the other students have people that are related to this field, and it was just an idea like that. We didn't have a stakeholder, we didn't have someone that wanted this, but I think we imagine that it would be a great idea to make a game to improve technical skills and automatic.
But I think one of the member of team has take a course on that, or was a volunteer or something like that.
No, a friend of one of the students was actually doing was learning in the police, and the other one, his father, is a former negotiator. So we have it back.
Another question, because I would like to ask you on that negotiation skills. Did you ask your relatives expertise on that project, or because you talked about that, is it something to do, or has it been done for the project?
So yes, we formed, because we did only one big scenario, and the scenario was reviewed by both these people, and they said it was pretty okay. It was, yes, relatively realistic, yes.
Thank you. Another question? So if not, thank you again, and we can. So the next presentation is about Patrick Joos from the Ostschweizer Fachhochschule. And he will talk about Exergame Cloud Platform, decoupling input devices from games.
Thank you very much for coming, and as you see, I will be talking about the Exergame Cloud Platform, a project that we realized over the last 3 years. Maybe first a little bit about me. My name is Patrick Joos. I work at Osh, as already mentioned. I'm a master and a passionate gamer, a mountain biker, and here's the warning for all of you, I'm a programmer, I'm not really a designer, so this is going to be a little bit of a technical talk. There we go. Alright, and so since you can already see me here and on the live stream, I thought you would rather enjoy a picture of my cat. Alright, I'm going to talk a bit about, well, we already did that, how we got here, so what was our project, what our big problem was, what our solution to that problem is or looks like. A short demo, it will be a video, and at the end I'll tell you my conclusion to that. So, how did we get here? We were approached by a business partner about doing exogames for stroke patients, specifically to use user-generated content to improve therapy success. The idea was to use pictures from like family members, grandkids especially, to improve the therapeutic success. We already heard yesterday a few times mentioned that involving family can be really helpful in that way. And the second part that our business partner wanted to do was he had a talk with a patient called Gerda, and she shared a vivid memory of cycling up the Gotthard mountain pass. And so he wanted to include that. This was the start of the project. So we had like everything ready, the clinics, the partners, and everything was ready. But then we had a different kind of problem, and that's why I have to do the next disclaimer here. I'm not really going to talk about the user-generated content part, but our big problem was developing exogames is really hard, and without devices, so without home trainers, without heart rate sensors and stuff like that, it gets even harder. And if you're talking in a clinical environment, accessing certified devices can be basically impossible. Some of you may know these sensors can be very cheap, like $30, or they can rank up to something like $250,000 upwards. No developer or no game developer can put such device inside their studio. I think that should be obvious. So we thought about how can we solve that problem? How can we talk about these devices if we don't have them in our studio? We thought about how can we standardize this communication between the devices and their games. How do these devices connect to the games, and how is that data transferred? The solution that we came up with looks a little bit like this. We have a centralized server that each device in each game will connect to through standard, through web standards like REST, WebSockets, and JSON. And that was one part. So we chose those standards because they are ubiquitous. Basically, any device that you can connect somehow to the internet can do that. And we defined two new interfaces to facilitate that communication. And these are those two interfaces. The first is the port. Ports are like connectors, where you can connect basically anything that fits into a port. You can connect it. I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. And the second part is the data part. So how is that data formatted, and how can you use it in your game? First, let's talk a bit about the ports. As just mentioned, a port defines on one side what a device can do, so its capabilities, and on the other side, what does a game need to play, so its requirements. For example, it needs a few buttons to be able to be controlled, and the device has like, maybe if you think about a gamepad, an almost standardized gamepad controller, a button could be Each port defines a unique ID, both for the client, so for one device, and for the port itself, so that you can distinguish in between them. As mentioned, they communicate through WebSockets, and each device would implement a gateway, as we call them, or a driver. We settled on that solution because it allows us to basically put the gateway anywhere we want. We could, for example, hook up a home trainer to a laptop and have the gateway here, which connects then to the server. We could implement it directly on the device, maybe through an Arduino device or something like that. So it gives us the freedom to put these gateways basically anywhere that we see fit, or implement them anywhere we see fit. And yeah, so we can basically put them in any kind of device we want. The second part is our data classes. Now, this is based on a paper by Stuck. They had a paper called Classifying Input for Active Games, and they identified 6 different data classes. I write here 7. I'll elaborate on that in a short while. So they have different kind of data classes that they identified that says, well, these are all the types of inputs you can have for an exogame. That is, those classes, a simple tap, that's a button on or off. You have axis, so you map that to a range from -1 to 1, with 0 being dead center. Point on a normalized rectangle that could be mapped to a touchscreen, something like that. A power, I don't think you can see the heart rate sensor quite as good, but still there. It could be, for example, a heart rate sensor or a cadence sensor, something like that. We have gestures. Gesture is a named event, basically. So when a tennis racket hits a ball, that could be a gesture. And a stance. So if anybody has ever played with a Kinect, you know what that would look like. So you can take a representation of your skeleton, basically. Those are the 6 classes identified originally, and we added a 7th one, array, which can be used, for example, to model VR controllers. So you have a position and an orientation in a space. So I'll show a little bit of how on the process, so how would that work. The devices, we have 2 here, a bike and a watch. They would connect to a server at any point in time. The game announces its requirements as well. And then we have the user. And the user now says, okay, I want to connect this device to this game in a certain way. I'll show that later. The server will send connection information to both the game and the device and facilitates the data flow from the device to the game. You can do a little extension here where you can actually channel data from the game back to the device. If you have like a force feedback device, you could do it in the other direction as well. It doesn't impede that in any way. I'll give you a short example maybe with the port, since it can be a little bit hard to imagine. Let's have a typical home trainer. This home trainer can provide us with several things. For example, the cadence, so how fast the pedals are spinning, can be mapped to a power. The heart rate, which is measured by the handles, could also be mapped to a power. Shifting up and down, we have 2 buttons. You can map that to a tap, and on this special device you have a little bit of steering, so you can map that to an axis. Now we've broken down that device into its components, so we don't have to think about specific implementation, we just need to know what it can provide. Let's have an example game, flying bike game, for example. Your target is to collect the yellow dots above. I think that's like Zurich actually. I'm sorry I couldn't change it to Neuchâtel anytime. If you pedal harder, you ascend. If you pedal slower, you descend, and you have to steer through those rings are rotated, but they're actually bubbles. And this game needs three things. It needs a power to measure how fast you're going, it needs a little bit of steering, and it needs one click for an interaction. So we map that again to power, axis, and tap. And now we can simply connect them. We can connect the cadence to power, we can connect the steering to the steering input, of course, and we can choose basically either the up or down button for the interactive part. The fun thing is, since this is all live, so all in real time, in the middle of the training you could say, okay, the bike isn't really working anymore, so you can switch it in real time to another port. Right. Okay, so here is a little demo. It's a game that we made to demonstrate the demo effect, apparently. Yeah. I'll post a link to the video later. It's on YouTube, so you can watch it afterwards, and it will show a little bit in live what kind of devices and what kind of games we made for that project. I'm very sorry that the video didn't work out. In our conclusions, what we find is that with this approach, you can really simplify the development of Excel games, since it allows you to think about the capabilities and the requirements of the game. You're not thinking about, okay, which API and SDK do I need to connect that. You just know I can, as long as I implement that interface, any game works with any device that will support our interface. Trying out new configurations is also really quick. For example, we had with the kayak game that I showed you, just steer left and right, and we could have two buttons. So we tried it first just with a single player, and then we just gave both buttons to different players, and suddenly we had a multiplayer game without doing any recoding or stuff like that. It was really fun to watch them light up like that. And adding new devices does not require you to change your game. So as long as both the device and the game support the interface, you can connect anything, even if it's a new device that was created years afterwards. And lastly, the games can be created separately from the device. So you can develop the whole game inside your studio. The device manufacturer provides you with what kind of ports the device supports, and you just code against that. And you don't have to worry about how the device exactly works. Perspective. So what we need to do now, or what we are trying to do, we need to facilitate the access to that interface. For anyone interested, documentation to our interface is on the QR code on the left. And we already started to get some additional funding to try to find out how much we can push that approach from the country anyone didn't notice yet. And yeah, we need support from more game developers, and we need support from device manufacturers, and that's what we will try in the next few months and years. So, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the talk, even though it was a little bit technical. And yeah, special thanks to Stefan and Julian for the organization of the whole conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
If I understood correctly, this is a very smart interface between device and program, correct?
A smart interface?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it can be looked at it like that, yes.
And very smart, very useful. The question is, have you experienced many trouble in terms of protocols? A lot of devices come from China, Korea, Japan, and so, and also sensitivity on the parameter of the
yes.
device itself.
Yeah. The good thing is, since we were mostly in control of doing the development of the gateways, we had a lot of control over the sensitivity and stuff like that. But it also, maybe a question that is popping up is also, okay, is WebSocket even fast enough for something like that? But like the sensors, for example, from my watch, they have a resolution of like 2 seconds. So I think we're fast enough there. And yeah, so that's something you have to take into account anyway, I think, when you're developing your EXO game. And what I experienced, that you shouldn't really make an EXO game that requires really rapid movements, because if somebody gets off balance in some way, they could hurt themselves. So really try to have controlled movements like that. So no, we didn't really experience a lot of problems with the sensor data, stuff like that, but it's something that you have to keep in mind.
Just one more curiosity about that. Do you have a protocol kind of self-calibrating in the very first 2 seconds when you connect the device, kind of self-calibration property?
That would need to be implemented on the gateway, so on the program that connects to the server.
Okay.
Yes. So we can do that. Yes.
Okay.
We have time for just one more question. So maybe that question would be, could you elaborate really live about the demo you were going to show us? Or what was about to be screened?
Yes, I can. Well, it's like explaining a joke. You'll kill it. But yeah, I can quickly tell you what's in there. It's actually, you see the link down here. If you copy it, or if you type that link into your browser, you will see it. And basically what we show is how you connect your devices and your games. We have like a node-based way to do that. You could also do an automatic way to connect device and game. And we also show a few different devices that we implemented for our games. So short list is like, as I said, smartwatches or and plus watches. We have cadence sensors from bikes. We have the dance pad from Dance Dance Revolution. We have the, I don't know if anybody remembers that, but the Donkey Kong bongos from way back in the GameCube days. Joysticks, yeah. So we have a lot of different devices, and it's really easy to connect them all together and do fun stuff with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So a round of applause for him once again. Thank you. The last presentation for this session is Sergio Lopez from the University of Applied Sciences and Arts Western Switzerland, HE-Arc talking about enhancing gamification within an online brainstorming tool. Okay, so welcome and thank you for being here. I'm Sergio Lopez and I will present you my master thesis about gamification brainstorming for dynamic classroom. So first I will talk about with the summary of this project. I had the opportunity to conduct research about gamified elements that could bring something valuable inside an application. And then we have tested this element with a small group of participants there for initial feedback. So just for your knowing, I will explain two key elements. The first one is the brainstorming. So I will talk a lot with brainstorming. There is a few ways to do brainstorming. The way I will use is this one in the picture. So the first phase is the ideation, is when you generate ID. Then you have sorting phase, when you sort the ID in small groups. Then you can, in the categorization phase, it's when you name your groups. Then you have the voting phase for voting on the better ID and the results. All this phase is inside the application, and also for the gamification. Gamification elements come from games like RPG games, video games, etc. And these elements can be added to any applications. But the purpose of these applications is just for adding some help or for helping the user inside the applications. So for the context, the first goal that we want to do is energizing classrooms. And for that, this project is a follow-up of another. The first version of this project was only the application that can do the session of brainstorming. And then what we want is added gamification elements inside this application. Just the first version is only the application online can do some brainstorming online. There is some gamification inside, like trophies, the point and the ranking, for example. And yeah, we need more gamification elements inside. So this was the context. The target issue for my project was the user management. So the first version has no user management, and we added this functionality for store some data about users, and also we want to reduce competition, because when you have a ranking system inside an application, there is also competition, and also added some creativity, interactivity, and user experience elements inside the new version of the application. So this is all the elements that we have had to the old application, and I will show you for each what it's like inside the application. So first, this is the functionality about session, trophy score, and history. So this was the first version of the application. This is very simple. You just need to add the code on the room and your name. And this is the new version. So we have something like on the right, top right, like statistic with the score of the total score of all of your sessions that it stores, and also the number of ID you generate, and the trophy that you unlock at least once. Then you have something for login, so every user is inside a class, and you choose your user, and you can choose also an avatar. Next, I will talk about the progress bar. So this one was the old version, and on the right you can see there is a racetrack, and all the people race each other, and there is also some competitivity. So we want to erase this race, and we added a progress bar. That's all the ID from all the participants. Increase the same progress bar to a goal that the moderator can set. And yeah, you can see there is some bronze, silver, color, and then if you hit the 100%, it's gold. Now we'll talk about the suggestion system. So the suggestion system will help people or users that have no ID during the iteration phase. So how I did this is when everyone can generate ID, and this is the people that don't generate around 1 minute, that don't have generate ID, a pop-up will pop with the last ID generated from the others. And that can increase the creativity of the user that have no ID, for example. Next, I will talk about the trophy that I have had. So I have two types of trophy. The three first is the trophy from the progress bar. So when you hit the gold tier or the silver bronze tier. Then you have some long-term trophy that we have had because now we have some data storage, so I can add this type of trophy. So when you have, for example, 500 or plus total score, you obtain a trophy for that. Now we talk about the cursor sharing system. So this functionality is on the second phase, when we need to sort the ID generate. And you can see that there is some three cursors here. So the one with the crown is the moderator, and the two other is the user. So everyone can see every one cursor. So it can help, for example, the moderator can, because only the moderator can move the ID and make groups. And that increases the interactivity inside the application. I will also talk about the ranking screen and results. This one is from the old version, and there is all the results inside one view. So you have the best ID on the left, the trophy, you score on the right, and also a ranking on the bottom right. And we wanted to change this and two views separate. One is the result of the sessions for more simply for you. For example, we have only the ID from with the votes from the brainstorming session. Then we have also the best category, and on the second view we have the best ID from the user, and also his trophy, his score, his whole data, and the ranking. We have changed the ranking, and only the top 3 user can see his home rank. So it's a better effect for less competitivity. And last functionality that we add is different visual team. So we have had 4 teams that you can choose at the start of the session. There is something like very classic with gray, black and white, a little bit more colorful with some brown. Then very colorful with some green and red, and also the classic dark team. Okay, so now we'll talk about the test results that we have done. And we have done 3 sessions of tests with a total of 13 person that answer all the questions from the survey. So we have 1 session with the teacher and 2 sessions with the students. And here are the results. So I will don't make long, but but you can see, for example, the first question was about the sharing cursor, and you can see that the teacher is lower than the result for the students. It's because on the group from the teacher there was 12 persons, and when you have 12 cursors moving around, it's very messy. So this is something that you can change. And yeah, in the other hand, we have some really good results on the right, with some potential source of confusion that is very high. And also, we asked the teacher about the use of similar tools in teaching, and the results was also very high. So for the conclusion, here are a picture of every element that we have had changed, improved, or removed, for example. So we have only removed the race, and all the things was improved or was new. And for the perspective and needs, the first thing we need is further testing, because we don't have any data for the results, for knowing if it's good or not. And also we want further collaboration with school, and also some consistency and usability in the application. So I'm the end of the presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you very much, Sergio. I would like to emphasize that this week I used Sergio's application during some of the workshop to find out, because we had to create something like a sales game or gamified product. And people were really happily surprised.
Thank you. Another question or comment? So I have one. The question is, how can you configure it or determine how long you have this ideation phase or not? Because it will require sometimes for the uninspired.
In each session there is a moderator that creates the session. And in this view, when you create the session, you can set, for example, the goal for the progress bar, but also you can set the time for the ideation phase, and something like that.
So testing now is going to be through some courses or things like that, or
yeah, we work with Stefan for searching some people for the testing.
Is it on a project scale or more like for your own? Safety, sorry.
We are looking for funds. So if you have some credits, yeah, we are looking for a grant. We might work with the consortium of HE-Arc Neuchâtel, and many other HE role. Looking for. You know that?
Another question or comment?
Thank you for your presentation. It was very cool. I have a question, because when I was a student, I was really bad, and if you ask me to write something on the wall, I would write something that the teacher don't want to see. So how does it bother it?
Yeah, right now there is no moderation system, but this is something that we can add for the future version. So yeah, now we can do anything about that.
But the teacher knows the name of the student. Oh,
yeah.
so it's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well then, thank you.
So there is a small break now. And I would like to also emphasize the fact that please stay for the last presentation. It will be made by Doris. It's a great work, so please. And after that, also there's the rewards and for the name of the GSGS and reward people that will be rewarded. So please stay. And enjoy your break.
With any specification, you always have the options. Very good part. Yeah, so that's the last link, so you
C'est chiant aussi. Non, parce que là, il y avait du boulot. Non, non, le fait d'être assis.
Only 11, okay, fine. That's great. So this will be, for sure, an interactive presentation. Novelty. Ja? Warum nicht? I was just continuing that this is summer and we are close to vacation, so this is a very serious moment. When people say, if you don't take time for yourself and resting, you will take time for the medicine and doctors.
Hi. I'm going to take the mic. I'm really tall, so I'm going to probably sit at the edge. But it's easier. So we had a lot of talks, and since I wrote the game, I thought, well, we can play part of it. But first, let me talk. So it's going to change a bit. So who am I? I'm sad I didn't put my cat there. No. So I studied industrial design engineering, and then I started working in the game lab as a serious game developer and team leader and project leader at the moment. And I do enjoy games a lot, and I am forever DM for Dungeons and Dragons. I love it. I like storytelling as well. For those, for those that don't know the Game Lab, it's part of the Technical University of Delft, and especially the Technology Policy and Management faculty. So we make serious games, and we are the developers, and we work together with researchers for most of the games. So some do data gathering using the games, some do, it's about games that they do research, or some present their research using games. So if you want to know about the research of the game role-based, then you're going to need to go to France next week for the design conference, because the researcher is going to talk about that. I'm not the researcher. We do a little bit of teaching, so we have a workshop about the 3D game design method. You might have seen it. And there's a game design course in the first quarter of the year where we do coaching, and our leader here today is the assistant professor and the professor of that course. So that's a bit about the game lab. We do games with research and mostly surrounding engineering problems, because we're the technical university. So we need climate change, energy transitions, transport, complex systems, stuff like that. But it's very diverse, so we have different games. So we have on the top right the future of the campus of the TU Delft, because we have a lot of students and we're ever growing, and how we're going to fit everyone. So it's about talking. The one on the over here. It's about the Port of Rotterdam and how it expanded, but it didn't really expand the train network. So there was a problem with too many cargo, too many terminals, and the crux of this game is you cannot win, because the goal is to come up with a system that you can win in the future. It's again a lot of talking. We have Health or Hero in the bottom right, which is a game for primary school children, and they learn about the of first aid, actually. And then the second day at school, they do the practice on the puppet and such. But they use the game to get knowledge of the theory, and it's really trial and error. So kids are far better at this game than adults, because adults think they know how to do it, and kids just try out and see what works. And the last game, Invadium, is a lot of research. It's being built for the research at the moment, where you are in a container with 3 people, and it's about the energy transition of the port of Rotterdam and CO2 levels. And if you have too much CO2, there's going to be smoke. So it's very stressful. There are a lot of cameras watching you to do research on how people deal with that stuff. So a lot of different areas that we do games and research on. But today we're going to talk about Rotbeesten, or rotten beasts if you translate it literally, or awful animals. And this is a game that we did in collaboration with the correct English term, the Outpatient Forensic Psychiatry, HE-Arc. So they're like the psychiatrists of criminals, basically. So if you ever seen the paper, the man stabbed at the supermarket, the first thing they think about is, ooh, was that one of our patients? So it's a very heavy job. And what we wanted to do is to focus on forensic vigilance or forensic equity. So how do you assess if a client is at risk of committing a crime, and how awful would that crime be if they committed it? So the idea is that they use different types of knowledge to assess this. They normally do this automatically, but we wanted to make a game to make them aware of this element and to assess in themselves if they were training. So they would do this yearly, so it needed to be replayable, and with quite big groups. They wanted to do it with their whole team, basically. So what we did, or what students did, because students in the course did it first. And these students, they made a game, Walk or Walk, where you had animals, and you needed to assess if you wanted to lock them up, or if they could walk freely. And if they walked freely, there was a chance that they would commit a crime, and you lost points. So they did it in 10 weeks in 2021, and we used that as a starting point. Their learning, their system analysis that they did, we used that as a starting point. Changed a whole lot, but it at least proved to HE-Arc and to us that it was possible to make a game on such a subject and that it would work. So in our game, you had 2 choices, and there was a sort of static outcome of points, no matter how severe the crime, for example. And so there were 3 characters, and you got information, and then you choose one part of the information. Took that with you to the conversation, but you could still use the ones you didn't choose because you have no memory. So there were elements that didn't work, and there were elements that did work, especially the animal part. They really liked it because it was easier to talk about a wolf eating a sheep rather than a cannibal eating a child. It's heavy stuff that they have to deal with. So, let's write a game design of it. We used it as well, and the students did too. For those who are not familiar with it, it's part of 3 elements, and those 3 elements need to be balanced to create a working serious game. We have the reality or the scope, the system analysis, the rules, the roles, and the resources of reality that you need to deal with. You have the meaning or the purpose, so what do you want to achieve with your game? Do you want assessment? Do you want teaching? Do you want procedural knowledge? Or do you want the cognitive skills, stuff like that? If I was a teacher, I use the game, why would I want my students playing the game? So not what players would get out of it, but what the one letting people play the game get out of it. And of course the game itself. It's too complex, it's too difficult to play, you need a whole day to know what the rules are, and it's no fun to play it anyway. If you want to learn more about it, there's the link that's developed by Oscar Hartenveld, who did his doctorate at our faculty. He developed it, and he's still using it, and I'm very happy to be using it. It helps a lot, and I love triangles. So, we had a game that the students made, and we had some learnings from it. So what we saw is that the animals they created were still quite surface level. They were not deep. So we tried to think about other systems to make a game with. So we looked at if you know it, it's the Sherlock Holmes consulting detective. It's it's a lot of text, and you need to figure out who the murderer is and why they did it. So we had an idea of making a game where there's a client and a lot of text, and you need to figure out what the risk is. So it's quite realistic in that sense, but they easily became bored because it was too long. It wasn't really a cooperative game in the sense that there's also a lot of discussion and working together and needing each other for information. On the other hand, we had combinations that you could just figure out. So you had an animal, a crime they committed, and their mental health, for example, which switch them any way they want, make a choice, roll the die, and see the outcome. It was fast, there was a lot of points, it was a lot of fun, but it didn't really get that deepness that we needed for the game. So it didn't work that well, but we had elements of both of those to create the final game, which we're going to play at it. So I'm not going to just talk about this. At the front over here, I have stacks of cards. So each player should get a stack of cards. Don't look at the cards yet. You can grab that. Some extras. So don't look. Something we need to tell players always. Don't look. Don't look. So, I'm not going to stay at the same level. I don't want to be a facilitator towering above you. I don't want to be above you. I'm not God. So, welcome to Rotterdam. You might know Rotterdam. Rotterdam is quite similar to it. So there are people who are more wealthy than others, more kind, more evil, more bad. Only in this case, they're not people, they're animals. There's a lot of different things happening. Tigers are going after antelopes and eating them, and we don't want that. It's a bit of a difficult situation, especially heuristically. Do you sentence a mouse for the same amount of time as a turtle, for example? It's a lot to think about, and it's not what you need to think about today. What you need to think about is that you are a multidisciplinary team, and you need to discuss two characters, or I think we're going to play one. You have information. It's a stack of cards. When I say so, you're going to look at the top, you get to remove the round one card. There are 3 cards underneath. Orange, with a name at the top. It should say, at the bottom, I'm sorry, upside down. It should say Edward Elephant. That's the client you will discuss. So one of you, I will be in this case the team leader, and we're going to discuss this client and see if we need to increase his treatment, if we can decrease it, or we should keep it equal. The thing is, if we increase it, it costs more, so we lose resources. If we decrease, there's more space for others to facilitate. Yeah? So far so good? So at the end, if we make a choice, you need to roll a die. It's 12-sided. And that will determine if something positive or something negative happens. And that, again, will influence the resources we have. That's the basics of the game. Simple enough, I hope. So now I will ask you to look at the cards and pick one. Just pick one question, the other ones can put back on the stage. So from the top 3 after the round 1 card, pick one question you want to ask. What do you think is important to know about Edward? So Edward is a 35-year-old elephant who has recently been released from prison. He has served a sentence of 15 years after he created a bomb for a religious attack against meerkats. Or Stockstarfish? Stockstarfish? Meerkats, yeah, okay. He has been assigned to Bistimo, our organization, to help his transition back into society. Although Edward did not reject his beliefs, he didn't return to his old community. Currently, he is a car mechanic and has limited communication with his mother. Yeah. I'm sorry? Okay. Edward is a 35-year-old elephant who has recently been released from prison. He has served a sentence of 15 years, so 1-5, after he created a bomb for a religious attack against meerkats. He has been assigned to Bistimo, the organization we play as, to help his transition back into society. Although Edward did not reject his beliefs, he didn't return to his old community. Currently, he's a car mechanic and has limited communication with his mother. He was raised in a radical religious community, and he's on his own for the first time of his life. So please choose one of the questions to ask, and the rest you can put back on the stage. So you don't want to put on the stage. They are not part of this game anymore. It's very important to know which questions you need to ask. Okay. I think we all chose. So, as you can see on the screen, we are now at team. So there are 3 options for treatment for Edward. On top of current treatment, communicate daily with Edward by phone, so calling or texting. The current treatment is visit Edward at his home once per week. We can also decrease if you think he's not at risk, doesn't have a high risk to commit a crime, or it wouldn't be so severe. And that's ask Edward to visit our facility once every 3 weeks. Yeah? So once a week, visit them, have daily communication by phone, or ask them to visit us once every 3 weeks. So now, if I would lead a team meeting, I would personally, if I would lead a team meeting, I will ask you to all share your information. Yes. So you can now read the backside to the answer to your question.
So on my card, I said Edward was raised in a religious community that hates meerkats, and from a young age he learned that meerkats are worthless and despicable creatures.
Hello.
Information is that elephants do not care about the opinion of others. They might be rejected today, but could become loved in 60 years.
Okay, so my information is that elephants think about their action for a long time. It can take several decennia for them to overcome something.
Alright, so my question is, does Edward show signs of stress? And the information is, Edward seems to have trouble sleeping now that he is no longer part of a community.
Okay, here's my question. What is known about crime surrounding Edward? All of Edward's relatives are part of an extremely religious community.
Has Edward shown signs of depression? Edward has had several fights with meerkats.
Has Edward shown up to all the appointments? So yes, Edward has been present for all his appointments with his team. Is there something that in Edward's environment that could make him aggressive? Indeed, what would make him aggressive is if he's reunited with his religious community.
So he could fall back.
The question is, how have you judged Edward? The judge was a meerkat. I don't want to talk about that, Rick. Sorry, about that judge.
My question was, how aggressive are elephants? And the response is, elephants can get very, very aggressive during their mating season.
My question was, has Edward come into contact with the law before? And the answer is, Edward has been in jail for 15 years, making a bomb use in an attack against the cat. Before that, Edward has never come in contact with the dog.
He told me, and I quote, "I feel lost. Who am I? Where do I belong? What is my purpose? Do I have one?"
Poor Edward.
So my question is, what is the character of an elephant? Elephants are group animals. They are stubborn and follow strict tradition.
My question was, what is the life philosophy of elephants? And the answer was, elephants live according to strict traditions. They do not like change.
I think on the last, so basically I asked Edward, what did he want? And he replied, I need my community to have animals around. I hate my free, isolated cage.
Okay, very nice. So do you think you have enough information to determine what to do with Edward? So, normally there's a whole conversation, but it's a bit difficult right now, and we're pressed for time, so I will just ask, raise your hands. What do you think we should do with Edward? Should we increase his treatment to daily follow? Should we keep it equal, or should we decrease? So to once every 3 weeks. Yeah? So who's in favor of increasing to have daily conversation with Edward on the phone? 1, 2, 3, 8, okay. Who would like to keep it equal for once a week? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, a bit more. And the decrease? No one, okay. That's easy enough. So in that case, I will say, well, I am the team leader. Normally I also have information to share. But I have the final choice. In this case, I will go with the group and I'll go for equal. Which means I need that Edward will be visited once a week by us, at least to know. Now, there's an outcome. I need to roll a die. It's 12-sided. And I need to roll a 7 or higher in order for us to have a positive outcome. No. 8. Close, but it's positive. Edward keeps on asking a lot of questions, but he slowly gains self-control. He's making friends and starts to find out who he is aside from his religion, which is a positive outcome and would gain 1 point in this case. Congratulations.
Bravo.
So, normally you would have 4 rounds of this, and of course with people in the field who know a little bit about how to make those risk assessments. But in this case, I would still like to ask, and there's still a microphone there, if you look at your neighbors, you might see that there are different colored cards, for example. So what do you think, do you agree with the choice that's made? Do you agree with the outcome? Anyone has an opinion on it? No?
I didn't understand the rules of colors.
Okay. So, someone with does someone have a pinkish red color?
Yeah.
What kind of information do you think it will give? What did it give in this case?
It's like an assessment about how he's doing. It says that he has trouble sleeping, so it's an observation.
Okay. Very nice. So we have green colored cards as well. Someone has a green colored card? What kind of information did it give?
Yeah, general about elephants in general, I think that's
I need something about Louisa.
No, yeah, that's the second round. You went ahead. So red would be more of an assessment, and the green cards would be more of general knowledge, I hear. Does someone have blue cards? What kind of information does it give, do you think? I think it's about his past. His past. Do you agree with that? That it gives information about his past?
Yes, it looks like a fact.
It looks like a fact. Okay. So, that's nice to hear. In forensic equity, there are 3 types of knowledge. Which is fact-based knowledge about the client itself. It's experience-based knowledge about similar situations that they encounter. And it's intuition-based knowledge. So actually talking to the client and what they, the gut feeling mostly. I'll just skip ahead a bit. So this is the Dutch version, because it's a Dutch-based game. So also sorry if there were any spelling mistakes, it was a quick translation. So we have the red one, or the arrow one, which is knowledge-based information. We have the green one, which is experience-based, and then we have the red one with intuition-based. So what we do at the end of the game, we ask players to see how many cards of each color do they have, and indeed, what do they think they mean. And also, if they therefore miss knowledge. And the idea about that is to have this discussion is to make them realize these types of knowledge and their preferences for these types of knowledge. And as a team to see if they're missing knowledge, and thus something needs to change to gain this type of knowledge. Because you need all 3 to make a sound decision. Fair enough? So, that's the basics of the game. There are some other elements. There are crises that can come up during a game to make it a bit more difficult. And at the end, there is a epilogue as well to see how Edward Elephant, in this case, fares overall. But we didn't come by this design of the game that easy. There were some fails during the design, such as the characters. So we have Edward here in the front, the elephant. When we designed the game, we tested it with different groups of Vivor, the company. And we, for example, talked with Thea Tukan, who is an exhibitionist, so she goes nude. And she's quite old, she's 80, so we still use the human years to make it easier to relativize that. However, the group that we tested it with, they never have any old people. So they were like, I don't connect with this case. So we saw that it was very important to create enough characters so that at least some of which they played, preferably at least the first 2 ones, connected with what they normally experience. So some groups were more experienced with drug abuse, some were more with just abuse in general, some were more with sexual encounters. So we have all types of animals, and they are quite heavy cases, all based on real cases, which was also important. So for example, we have this beaver who said drug abuse, we have a rapist, we even have a pedophile, which is something they encounter, and it's quite an interesting case. They really wanted to include that because there are children involved and people are far harsher, which isn't always useful. And that's a very interesting thing we came about. So we needed more characters. It was very important to not only focus on the play and interesting characters, but also keep in mind that reality, keep it in balance so that they can relate to it. We had the crises, so we didn't use it today. But sometimes in later rounds, the characters can come back with a crisis intersecting another round, which gives a lot of, takes the flow out of the game a little bit. So we removed it from the student version. However, that wasn't the right decision because it's very realistic that sometimes they just have a discussion, a meeting, and they all have to get up, go somewhere because there's a crisis. So again, with reality, we try to remove it in favor of the gameplay and the meaning, because it wasn't about crises and how to handle those. It was about the cards and the equity, but it was such an important part, and it actually, some people said it improved the gameplay as well. So we included it back. Chaos, as you can see, it's a lot of cards. This is only 2 characters. We have 12 characters in total. And what we first did is that every round, the facilitator would come by and give you new cards. This disrupted the game flow quite a bit. So we designed how you should prepare the cards before gameplay, so that the gameplay itself would become easier. We also added that you have two facilitators facilitating this game. One is the technical facilitator, so in charge of the cards and the facilitation of the game itself and the rules. And then we have a subject facilitator at the end who joins in the debrief and adds to the discussion with things they came about and saw happening. But it needed to be designed because it was far too chaotic in the beginning. There's also one of the things that we wanted to improve with the simpler version, but it didn't work because we saw it already with the student version that there were just too many things, because if you print it all out, the whole table was filled. So we reduced the cards a little bit, but not enough, to at least make it playable in that way. And the end game. So the students had an end game, you could use the points, and then you could use those as hints for where's Waldo, or where's Wally, as we call it. Sort of game where you could find the players, the characters you talked about. This is just the Waldo place. The thing is that it wasn't connected to the game at all. It was just a different game. So we tried to make a version where it was connected to the game, but in that case, it became a second game. So in the end, we removed it. But we really tried to wrap up the game in some way and do something with the points, but just making another game wasn't one of the solutions that worked. Of course, there were also characters, the colors, the choices, and how we did the end in the end. So the characters, we talked about. I already talked about that we needed clients, and what worked very well is to indeed focus, base them on real cases they saw, so that they were realistic enough, and they could map the things they learned in a game better to their real life work. But also worked, so each character of these, we have a whole booklet filled, has background information. And we use the background information and their profile on the risk assessment they normally do with real clients, which meant that the information given is focused on what they normally ask and normally use. So in that case, they really liked it. They also liked the art, which I liked because I made it. So that was nice to hear. So again, the colors. So first, the characters had, the players had just information and they could pick. In that case, they used just all the information. And what ended up happening is they would pick the information with the most text because it was most difficult to remember during the meeting. So what we did was change it to the questions, because again, we wanted to go back to the meaning of the game, and the meaning was to figure out what kind of questions they ask, what kind of information they are seeking. So in that case, we changed it around, and that worked very well to see that players indeed saw their preferences in real life come back into the game at the end of it. Yes, I see. Normally, I mostly go on intuition if I just let myself go and don't focus on I need all the information. So the colors and the questions really worked. So it was very nice. And then the choices. So the students, again, they started with just walk or walk, and in the end we made choices really based on each character and focused them. It was mainly done by the experts, because I don't know how often you need to treat someone. I'm not a psychiatrist. So we had some real design about this, because the equal, decrease, and increase really needed to not be too far apart. It was very clear what the middle one was the best option, but you also shouldn't be too close that there wasn't a real difference. So normally the optimal solution probably will be somewhere between those. So they really should choose. The thing as well is that we changed the impact of their outcomes. So not only does it change the die, the number you need to roll, in this case, you need to roll, it's always 50-50. Doesn't matter what choice you make, it's always 50-50. However, if you increase your treatment, she's a social influencer on drugs, she goes to a rehab facility, and if it's negative, she goes to the media to say she was forced. So she really drags the company down. However, it's quite bad. If you keep equal, she just pisses her boyfriend's apartment. I mean, it's not nice, but it's not that big of a deal in their line of work, because if you decrease and you don't listen to her, she might die. She has an overdose. So there's really a difference in the outcome as well. So that we really included the risk itself, not only the chance of the risk of the crime. So that worked, it was nice. And the end game, so we didn't use a game in the end or something like that. We used an epilogue. So there's a little diary entry, a letter written to the facility, or a media post about the character. So each character has 6 of these based on the choices they made in the outcome of the role. And they liked it. It's a nice wrap-up of the game itself, so that we can quickly move to debrief. Because as my research friend, I don't know if it's a quote of another quote, but he says a game is just a good excuse to have a debrief. And that's the thing we say as well. Yes, the game is finished after the epilogue, but the serious game isn't, because we need that debrief. And we also need the introduction. Because not only an introduction of the rules of the game, but also accepting the world that we live in, or gonna play in at least. So that's something I want to give to you. How we did it with this game and how we are doing it in subsequent games is introduction not only of the world, so Rotterdam in this case, but also the reality. Hey, it's about animals. It's okay if someone dies. It's a game. But also, you need to take it seriously. So normally we have a little talk, an extra talk about a previous client who went mad. So we say, take it seriously. So yes, it's a game. Yes, it's fun. But still, think about it. And then, of course, the rules on how to play the game. For the debrief, we have a three-parter as well. So first we ask them, how did you think? What did you think about the game? Did you now hate the die? Did you think there was a better outcome to do? Really focus on the game itself and what they did in their actions in the game. Then we have about mechanics, so indeed the colors of the cards, but also the die, because in reality, they don't know the outcome for sure, whatever treatment they do. So the die, however, it is very realistic in the sense that they just don't know the outcome, and it can be chance and bad luck. And then the reality about how they go about if they actually have this forensic equity and if they maybe need to do some little learning and additional training. So that's how we transition from the game world and the magic circle of the game back to reality. So both sides, it's a transition. So we had some expected outcomes, it was very nice. That's more on the research. We had some unexpected outcomes as well. So there was one person who hated green. And the whole team was very taken aback by that, because green is an important card to information to include, sadly. But he really hated green. And that was one of the outcomes of the game. That he thought green should never even be included in the game. It was very harsh. But it was interesting to see, and there was an interesting conversation coming out of it. Some people don't care at all about the conversation in the team meeting. They just have their choice. Some don't even listen, especially in the case of our pedophile, unfortunately, because I learned, apparently, once a pedophile is caught, there's a very small chance that he does it again, or they do it again, apparently. So if you very monitor them very hard and restrict them, they cannot let out their needs in some way, then they might do it again. So actually, it's better to decrease his treatment than increase his treatment. However, children are involved. In this case, he has a child. So people tend to really want to decrease him. So that's one of the cards that there's a lot of discussion, and often the team leader has, I don't care what you say, I want this choice. And which also has some interesting outcomes sometimes. And we also saw, what we love to see in games, that the hierarchy of the team they don't use it anymore. And in this case, we had an intern who put the boss of the whole company in his place because he was talking before his turn. It was very nice to see, and he didn't mind at all. But it was just you saw the people who knew he was the boss, was like, ooh. The intern was like, oh yeah, it's part of the game. So it's very nice to see those things happen as well. So if we look back to the 3D game science, we have the forensic vigilance or the forensic equity. I also use the research roles and rules method. So yes, there's resources and there's a lot of resources. We don't care about those. We just call them resources. but we do care about those info categories and we use those as resources in the game. And therefore, you need the other players because they have the other information. And then we also got rid of all the different roles that the team members might have. We just have the team leader with the final choice, because that's still an important part of using all the information and making a choice. And the rules, so the limited choices, they do have that in real life, and sometimes they can't even make a choice. So we chose that still to increase the reality. And because we wanted the assessment and the information itself, we really wanted to focus on the discussion and showing the information preferences. Team dynamics was a nice bonus. So now I want to close off this talk with some tips. So as I said, there's a lot of chaos over here, and I would advise you, especially if you have a game with a lot of numbers and a lot of resources, if you start to make a list of all those resources, not just make a list, print out all the cards, even if you just say action card, and see how much you have on the table, because you quickly see that's far too much and you need to reduce those. So that's one of the first things I learned when I started working at the Game Lab. Print everything as soon as possible, just to see how much you have. Again, the balance of the 3D game design method, but if you want more information about that, look up Casper Artefeld. Not only design the game, also design the intro and debrief. I would have preferred if I had done it sooner during this game. So in current games, I am doing it sooner. Like at the first test sessions, we include intro and debrief as well. Because it's an important part, it's where the learning happens, especially in the debrief. And the intro really helps to players to accept the rules of the game and take it serious, the amount of seriousness you need them to take it. And of course, that's design, always. Just test your game, doesn't matter if it fails, if you see something. So if you want to work with the game lab and T-Dot, you're open. So this is the email of the general game lab and the website. Please include yes, it's very important, otherwise it doesn't work for some reason. So we do indeed, again, with on and in games we do research. So always fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much for this talk. I just had a quick question on I don't know whether it's quick, on the die results. The threshold, it depends on the choice we make just before. How to say that? The consequence of the die, of the result of the die, depends also on the choices we make. So there is the probability of something positive or negative that is influenced, and or the severity of the result of the
both indeed.
Both. In our case, for example, do the participants know, oh, we should have taken this option better than this other to have a higher or lower risk of something?
So they don't know the severity or the chance indeed before they make a choice, because that's the point that they need to do it themselves. And afterwards, well, during the game, they often have a discussion between rounds to see, well, we should have made a different choice. And then the facilitator lets them discuss if there was a better option. And afterwards, they can see if there was or not.
Okay.
So it's part of the discussion.
Okay, but they can check with the
later on. However, we did add that sometimes the dice are very kind to you, very unkind to you. So we did say that the facilitator is allowed to change based on the argument. So, but it is free knowledge in the end. It's about the learning. And then at that case, at that point, especially the mechanics at the middle part of the debrief, those talks come about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one question about the colors of the cards, because there are 3 colors difference, blue, green, and red, with red, for example, for intuition choice. Was there a reason for these colors, for these choices?
The students in the beginning had similar colors, so we tried to keep them the same for the continued. And I think, why I also thought they were fitting. Knowledge and blue, scientific knowledge and blue is often a combination, and then red with intuition and passion is also a combination. So I thought, well, they fit anyway, so I'll keep it this way. But then there's no big color study done, no.
Any other question or comments, remark?
Okay, so as I understand, you use this game with specialists.
Yeah.
Did you already try to use it with normal people like us?
We did do it. We had it on a market fair or maker fair, where we didn't include the happy ones. And we saw that it did work somewhat, but they are missing a bit of knowledge. And we're actually looking forward to see if there's a possibility to make an extension of it that can be used with subsidized or municipalities to make them a bit better understand what they are doing for their living. So they really are looking for a version that they can play at home. Like, this is what I do for a living. So it's not, yes, we played it a little bit, but it is not designed for them, no.
Thank you.
Well, fantastic. And I was amazed that you also here as game master.
Always.
My goodness. I suppose that we can close the rest for this great work. And here is a small gift for you. Certificates. Thank you so much. Yeah. And now we will do the very last session, which is not a session actually, but the ending was, if you don't mind. So here's the end. After 1 week of Congress, conference, I must say it has been quite a long week. I keep showing my fingers, maybe go. So maybe go to the other project. But even if there was truly not a lot of people, I felt really great, a lot of very positive communication, almost like positive waves. And people kind of really believe in this. There was an enigma, and someone actually here found out the enigma. Just for you to know, the hint were about storytelling and about artificial intelligence. So it was not that easy. So someone decoded the enigma, found the storytelling, and understood what was this strange AI cat and why so serious. Why this cat was so serious. I will not tell you the story, and so this person will keep the secret. If you want it, you will have to do the work. For this person, because here she is, please applause. Jenna? Yeah. I was not sure of the pronunciation. Here is a tiny gift for you. I hope you'll enjoy it. Congratulations. Some comments on it?
No, but thank you for all the conference. Because it's been a very inspiring week and it was intellectually very rich. So thank you very much. And if you do have it, I'll be happy to be here next year.
Thank you so much. And here are the official rewards. Unfortunately, lot of the people are not here actually because of other appointments. The first one is the best paper. That was the easier one. The easier one because we just have to take the ranking with the double blind system, and we just take the first one. And Yassine, where is Yassine? Oh, he's there. and that was hard. That was really hard because he's part of the. He was not part of the jury numbers, but he was part clearly of the executive committee. So we were like, should we give it? It sounds like, oh, thank you so much. I give it to myself. Ooh, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. So congratulations for that. And here, I would like to point out that it has been created by the head, and every year there is a new creation, artistic creation, and this year it's this shape. Do you have some comment?
Yes. Thank you. I'm happy, really, because it's my 4th or 5th publication, GSGS. I never get it before. So perseverance is a good thing. Second thing, for this session, just to focus on the fact that Stefan said that it's not because I'm a member of the committee. I have a second paper I suggested for the conference this year, and it was rejected. yeah. So I have the best paper and the worst one. Just because the second one I rated in 1 hour at the last time. So this is the but to know that we can be rejected even as member of the committee. So again, thank you very much. I'm very happy, and I will also share this with the 2 other co-authors. Thank you again.
We will make a photo with
after.
Thank you. 5.33/6 with 4 judges and 8 grades for each. I can tell you that's quite a high grade. It's quite difficult to reach. And one thing, you're wrong. I did send a paper, and mine was the worst one. I got a 3.1. So please. I should have a reward for that. Okay, next one. Best innovative idea. And that was the fight. That was the fight on the jury. That's why instead of 5 minutes, it took like 15 minutes. I don't know if you heard when you were taking the coffee, but there was a real fight. Like it was 2 against 2, and one was like, I'm not quite sure. So it's announcing a gamification with online brainstorming tool. Congratulations. Some few words?
Just a few, yeah. So thank you for this. And so this is my first conference or something like this submission. So I'm really happy. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, next one. So the best talk. That was also a bit difficult until we had again. Yeah. So congratulations to Thomas for
So I guess this is where you say I really didn't expect it, but I really did not expect it. So thank you very much. And I mean, really, I know like all the effort you went through and like all the organization is behind, and I can just see you everywhere, and just it's an amazing effort, and it's really worthwhile. It's a beautiful conference. Thank you very much for everything. Thanks. It's my preferred time.
And the last one. So the best student contribution. And actually the student is not there, he left. So it's Simon who wrote 2 papers and was accepted on both. And I would like also to point out that in terms of papers, he was ranked 2nd and 3rd with 5.21 and 5.23. So 1/10 of the 6 points. So congratulations to him. Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you so much. That was great to read.
Okay. What a week. 2 workshops. Thank you for the participant. There's one survivor also here. There was an eco-working day. That was an experiment. It went fairly well, and that was one of the 3 roundtables we had together. The speed dating was very fun. So basically, we put everybody in front of everyone. 5 minutes. You have to talk about yourself and 1 personal and non-professional anecdote. and 2 days we went through with this is the picture of yesterday. Thank you so much for that. There was quite a lot of people talking with short talks. Thank you so much. And there was also really great people for making long talks and keynote speakers. Thank you so much. We never ever had a dream to have such a great palette of people. Thank you very much, the sponsors. I mean, Swiss, HE-Arc, a lot. Money went from our school, HE-Arc. NIF, because without them we would not be there. SGDA, so it's the Swiss Game Association. Digital Bidum, the company from Innovative Serious Games. EPIA, who support us from the very beginning also, and HESSO, so the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Western Switzerland. There was also a company called Contrefort who is making the design of the proceeding. It has been a great pleasure. We have a number here. Would you like to say some few words, Sam, about what's design or something? No?
Yes, Simon Mora. There is Simon Mora saying thank you on YouTube.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Simon. Again. Whoa! Let's do the weight.
Not only the proceedings, but all
the design,
media design,
all
the communications.
Today, this year was, of course, Tetris, but the year before it was Domino and great ideas there's also the students who came, who promised to come, and thanks to them, that's really great to see you there. Even if in terms of volunteering, there was not that much to be done, but the fact that the GSGS went on the week of exams, and unfortunately there was a change of weeks, and so there was no more demo, no more teachers, no more students. They went after the ending exam, so thank you so much for coming. Samuel Rossetti, who is there for the tech and the technical aspects. Thank you so much, especially this year, because basically we arrived yesterday morning and there was no more Wi-Fi. later on, there was issues with yeah. We even had we couldn't close the lights, and then there was the airport strike. After 100 years, no strike. They new strike, so we had to find out for the invited keywords speakers a new way for them to come home. That was quite incredible. Julien Sen, I would like to give an applause. For sure. I mean, what can I say? What did he do? I mean, he's the guy. You know, he's the guy. Yeah, the guy who connects, the guy who the only one who can stand me. I mean, can you believe that? I mean, he's the guy. So thank you so much for your fantastic. Ta-da! And thank you all. See you maybe in the next GSGS, hopefully. Some people say that maybe we are very lucky to be in Zurich. Maybe. So thank you very much for everything. And this is the ending words of the 8th conference of gamification and serious games 2023.
I thank you, Stefan, for the good work and the